Oklahoma Senator Mark Wayne Mullins is with us. Senator, there is no doubt we are watching history tonight. There is no doubt that
That's right.
I agree with the president. This is one of the most skilled, important, imperative peacekeeping, peace through strength keeping operations in the last 40 years. And certainly the reign of terror in Iran, whether they know it or not, is coming to a quick end. They will decide their own fate. So far, they have rejected any and all opportunity for peace. We'll see what happens in the days to come. Your thoughts?
Yeah, Sean, there's a lot to unpack here, and I completely agree. Peace through strength is what President Trump has been talking about from day one. I can tell you every one of our allies in that region is extremely thankful, and those that aren't our allies in that region are extremely thankful. All of our enemies around the world are extremely fearful right now. I think you pointed out earlier, North Korea is, let me tell you, the back of the hair just stood up on their neck. You have China that's paying attention. You have Putin that's paying attention. They understand that we can deliver when we need to, and we can destroy things and targets that threaten the United States. Now, keep in mind that this regime since 1979 has killed over 1,000 American either civilians or service members. And just since 2023, I mean, in 2023 and 2024, they attacked us multiple times underneath Biden because Biden was considered weak. All because of the Afghan disastrous withdrawal, and they continued to attack us. President Trump had to reset, and once we got eyes on the program, and what I mean by eyes on the program, underneath the Biden administration, they were not giving us direct information. Even in March, when they were doing the handoff, we were not getting direct information of what was actually going on in Iran. Keep in mind, the Biden administration was trying to appease them. They were trying to say, hey, nothing to look at, why they gave them billions of dollars from the taxpayers of the United States. And what President Trump did is he made this a priority because 10 years ago, when he came down the escalators in New York, he said that there was no way Iran could ever have a nuclear weapon. And he has made that a priority in this administration. Once we got eyes on and saw how big of a threat Iran actually was, it became a point of urgency. And President Trump just put the exclamation on it and said, you're done bullying us and chanting death to America.
Let me ask you, Senator, he said in his Truth Social post, and by the way, you were talking about the Iranian attacks on Americans or their proxy attacks on Americans, and we're scrolling that now for our audience.
That's right.
He said in his there will be either peace or there will be tragedy for Iran. He said you should have listened because he gave them 60 days. Both he and Steve Witkoff, his Mideast Special Envoy, Secretary of State Rubio, everybody went all in to give them the opportunity to give up their nuclear ambition. They were told directly what the consequences would be. Now tonight they're living out those consequences. The next phase of this, which I know from all of my sources, the next phase of this is already in action, and that is the president is protecting our assets in the region. We already know that there are Iranian terror cells that Biden, Harris, and Mayorkas allowed in the country. So we've got to be on super vigilant alert here on the homeland. Of course, you know, Tom Homan and Kristi Noem and everybody's trying to get rid of them. But phase two is already underway, and that is to protect our assets, give the Iranians an opportunity for peace once again. You know, he gave an opportunity to them 2 days ago, and yesterday they said no negotiations. I would imagine that probably moved up the timeline from 14 days to 2.
Well, Sean, also President Trump during his speech gave a warning shot to him, basically saying, hey, listen, this is your time for peace. If you choose not to, we have other targets already located, and we will deliver. And by the way, we already hit the hardest ones, so you know that we can take out your easiest ones. It was a warning shot. And I want people to understand, those that are talking about the war powers, I mean, you heard Chad talk about, the reporter that you visited about earlier, talked about the war powers and how AOC, who really gives a flip what AOC is saying, and some others are talking about impeachment because we should come to Congress first. Underneath Article 2, it has been debated and been put into court multiple times on what exactly the length of war powers have, with the president having to come to Congress before he committed troops. We didn't commit necessarily troops here, but it also goes on to say, according to court rulings, that if we are attacked, the commander-in-chief, not the president of the United States at the time, but now he becomes commander-in-chief, has the authority and the ability to protect Americans home and abroad if we feel threatened or attacked, including our assets. There is no question Iran has threatened us, and there is no question they have attacked us. This is well within the president's authority to be able to do just exactly what he's doing. He's keeping America safe. And by the way, President Trump is the president of peace. He wants peace more than anybody, but at the same time, he believes in peace through strength, and deterrence is the best way to keep peace.
Well, I think we showed tonight that, once again, the policy of peace through strength works, but they were given every opportunity.
That's right.
And they'll be given another opportunity. If the Iranians are foolish enough to try to retaliate, it is obvious that part 2 of this operation, part 1, is an unmitigated historic success. And I believe this military effort, like a lot of the military efforts of the Israelis, will be studied probably for the next 100 years. So too will this president and his team. They have gamed out every possible scenario whereby the Iranians, if they are foolish, might try to go after Americans or American assets. If they do that, I mean, as the president said, the hard targets are gone. They could wipe out their economy with one shot at their refineries that are clustered very close together. They can take out their entire electric grid. And I think there's going to be a lot of ramifications, and that'll settle out over time. My hope is, and my belief is, I'd not be surprised if a lot of countries in the region don't sign on to the Abraham Accords as a result of all of this. I would imagine all of the Gulf states will. I wouldn't be surprised if the Jordanians eventually did, and the Egyptians did. I mean, this could hopefully, maybe, perhaps, without the threat of a nuclear-armed Iran, usher in an era of real peace in that region that has been craving it and hungering for it for such a long time. I've got to hope that might be a possibility. And you're right. I think every one of America's geopolitical foes, they're watching closely tonight the military might of the United States and also the will of President Donald J. Trump. And they are taking notes tonight.
Hey, and Sean, I completely agree. Let me talk about a couple of things. The Iranian people, I believe, actually love America, and I do mean that. Before the Ayatollah came into power in 1979, we had a very good relationship with Iran and the Iranian people. In fact, Iran was actually more westernized than any other country in the region. The current regime is the ones that I'm afraid is going to lead Iran down this path. The Iranian people, I think, if they had their choice, they would like to be free from. Now, and I'm not saying anything about regime change. That is up to the Iranian people, not the United States. And talking about the Abraham Accord, you're going to hear a lot more about the Abraham Accord, but it's probably going to be brought up by normalizing relationships. For some reason, the Abraham Accord, and there's a biblical reason behind that, it's kind of a touchy subject when you use it by Abraham Accord, but when you start talking about normalizing relationships, it allows Saudi Arabia to come in, it allows Egypt to come in, it allows Jordan to come in, and people see how the Abraham Accord, or normalizing relationships with Israel, has worked for UAE, and people want to repeat that. So I think this does give the whole entire region the ability to start normalizing relationships, tying in the economies. And when you start tying in the economies in a region, you start ending these wars, because everybody's economy is going to be affected by it. And every leader knows if your economy goes south, your people could go south, especially in a dictatorship where they could be overthrown. That's dangerous.
You know, one of the things that has come up a lot, Senator, is this idea of what the Trump doctrine is. Well, we learned about the Trump doctrine in his first term. He used the mother of all bombs in Afghanistan. He wiped out the entire ISIS caliphate that Barack Obama and Joe Biden allowed to grow. He took out General Soleimani,
right,
and people were predicting that would start World War III with Iran. That didn't happen. He took out Baghdadi and associates. He has shown his willingness, if necessary, to protect American interest and stop terrorism without getting into forever wars, which is also part of his doctrine, both aspects of which I support wholeheartedly. Your thoughts?
Yeah, and I want to talk about in Afghanistan dropping the mother of all bombs. By the way, that Moab is made in McAlester, Oklahoma. That was in response to a captain of the 19th Group getting killed in Kandahar. And after he dropped that bomb, we never lost another service member in Afghanistan underneath President Trump's watch. And then keep in mind, too, in Syria, Russia controlled the airspace. And President Trump said that if you use chemical weapons on your people, we will come and react to that. Obama, he actually drew a red line and did nothing about it. Once they actually did drop a 50-gallon barrel drum of mustard gas or whatever it is they dropped, President Trump took back the airspace, bombed the airport that it came from, and kicked Russia out. Interesting enough, no other attacks and nobody else challenged President Trump in his first term. Again, that started happening again, of course, when Biden came into place. My point that I'm getting to, President Trump can bring peace, but he had to restructure what Biden had absolutely destroyed. Because of Biden's weak leadership, President Trump is trying to clean up the mess that the Biden administration left behind. I think tonight he just cleaned up that mess. And you're going to see this settling of dust in that region and possibly around the world because of what President Trump was able to do tonight with our great men and women in service.
All right, we appreciate your time tonight and staying up on the Saturday night with us. Senator Mark Wayne Mullin, Oklahoma, we appreciate it.